Hi, I'm Adee, and I live in Austin, Texas, originally from Toronto, Canada. Recently, I've fallen in love with breakfast tacos, and Austin has the best ones. And I also love CrossFit and dancing.
Great. Hi, Adee. Where's the breakfast taco place in Austin, just for anyone
Oh
interested?
my God. When I first moved here, I honestly was repulsed by breakfast tacos. I was just like, gross. Why would I put eggs in my tacos? That sounds disgusting. And then I had one. I have a couple places. Number one is Taco Deli. It's really good. Uh, and then there's also a place, well, Snooze is kind of like a national chain. Snooze, they have Snoozes all over. The Snooze here in Austin, Texas has amazing breakfast tacos.
Nice. I'm a big fan of breakfast tacos. I prefer breakfast tacos. I'd eat breakfast tacos for dinner.
I eat all breakfast food for dinner. Like,
Yes,
it doesn't
that's also
matter.
true. It's
Yeah.
true. Okay, let's get started. So I thought this would be a cool, little topic to talk about. Life stability before 30. How old are you, Adee?
I'm turning 30 in April, so I'm 29.
So you're on the cusp, but I feel like you've had life stability for a while now. And when I say life stability, it's like all encompassing. It doesn't mean like specifically you have financial stability or specifically emotional or specific relationship. It's kind of just all encompassing. Like I feel like you're just stable in your life. And I feel like that's quite rare before 30, but I feel like these days it's not uncommon because of the internet, right? So people can work online more. There's more opportunities for entrepreneurs, less need to go to college for a long time. And like usually what you see is people kind of in their 20s, they're finishing off their degrees and then they're finding a job and they're working their way up the ladder. I'm talking about regular 9 to 5 jobs. And then by the time they get to their 30s, they're maybe thinking about getting married, maybe thinking about having kids. And maybe by their mid 30s, they're having the kids. And then they're like, now we got to make money, and like, I think you and Michael have done a great job of kickstarting that like 10 years earlier. And I guess my question is, what does that mean for you? Like, were you thinking about that as it was all kind of happening, or did it just kind of evolve and now you're at this place and you're not even 30 yet?
Yeah. What does it mean for me? I don't think it was super conscious at the beginning. I think both Michael and I started working really young. I think I had my first job when I was 14. Um, a lot of this, I think, has to do with the way my parents raised me, and that is entirely outside of my control. My parents really instilled in me some certain things in my family were not off limits to talk about. We talked about money. We talked about jobs and careers and how much money they made and why they were making decisions they were making. I remember talking to them about them having like tax-free savings accounts for us and just things like that when we were younger. And they definitely had that being a very open and honest conversation, which I don't think happens in a lot of families where
Right.
maybe the parents themselves are feeling a little bit uncomfortable about money, and so they just don't talk about it with their kids. And so I think that was very helpful for me, just not having issues talking about it.
Right.
My parents gave me the greatest gift I think that any parent could give their child, is just knowing that they were always going to be there if anything completely messed up. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that having that safety net of, I could always move back in with my parents. I could
Mm-hmm.
always ask them for support, and they weren't going to, like, they were still going to love me. Like, knowing that helped me take bigger risks than I would have taken if I didn't have that.
Right.
So thank you, mom and dad, if you're listening to this. I appreciate you. But I think for sure that is two things that are just completely outside of my control, that if anyone listening to this and you have kids, like, it really helped me for my parents to talk to me about money. And it really helped me to know, very clear that they would guide me, but if I made mistakes, it was okay to bring it to them. What was the problem was if I lied about things. They didn't like when I lied about things.
Right.
And then also everything that I wanted that wasn't necessary was 50-50 in my family. So I had to pay for half and my parents had to pay for half, or they would pay for half, or they did things like I bought my own car, my first car, but my dad bought it and I paid him back. Like he was the loan. Like I got the loan from my dad and I paid him back, and he taught me what interest meant and that type of thing, which I think was cool. So I think I had like some of the basics of like, okay, like money matters. There's ways to manage your money. You shouldn't go into debt if you don't have to. Make your credit card payments on time. As soon as I could get a credit card, my parents got me a credit card so I could have credit. That type of stuff I think was really, really helpful, and it helped me take risks. And then I had an amazing, fortunate, in many ways, completely pure luck opportunity to start working against gravity in 2014. And that put us in a position to make a huge impact, but also have a career much earlier than I expected to have a full-on career. Like this happened at a time when I was taking a year off. Like I was taking a year off to just train, knowing that I wasn't going to, I was having a type of job that was like living paycheck to paycheck, but happily, like not in a struggling kind of way, in a, like I'm choosing to do this type of way. And this happened in that year. So I was 24 years old. It was totally unexpected. I think a lot of that is luck, but the basics of I think a lot of people are afraid of thinking about money because it's scary and you're not sure. And there's a lot of this, like the accountants know more than me and the government's involved. It's just kind of like scary and gray. And knowing really early on that the earlier you make those types of financial decisions, the better you are later. Like do it sooner. Even if you don't have a lot of money or you can't save a lot, the sooner you can start saving anything, the better it will be later on.
Right. And you make a good point about, you were 24 and it wasn't like on your radar to do this, but you followed up with saying like taking risks earlier on is in a way safer than waiting, later when maybe you're like mentally more mature or whatnot, because later that is when you do have a family. So taking risks while you have a family is just not as optimal. It's a little scary, you want to be more stable. So, I mean, for anybody listening that are like in their 20s, what kind of advice would you give them to help them through that like transitional period of life where you're sort of like, well, what am I doing? Like I've got this degree in political science now, but that's not really what I'm into. I just kind of did it because my parents wanted me to go to college but I really like doing this. Like, should they just go for it and to hell with it, or?
Yeah, it's definitely a hard question for sure. I do think that there is a ton of value in what you said of the older you get and the more in a routine you get and the more you get into the milestones of life of like getting married and having a family and doing those things, the more the excuses and the reasons not to take risks start stacking up of I now have a family to provide for, and there's all these reasons as to why I can't take risks or more fear around it. When you're younger and have much less responsibility, there's so many, you can take bigger risks, and I think it's important to take advantage of the freedom. Like you have much more freedom at that time. So making mistakes just aren't as impactful on other people, or they won't be as hard to recover from.
Right.
I do think that's a really good insight that you mentioned. What I would say, people ask me this question a lot. I don't think I would tell somebody to just like, screw it, like forget about all your responsibilities or like be totally reckless and just, go put all your money and savings into a business that, like you don't know if it's going to work out. Right. I would probably say something in between, like definitely take any spare time and invest some money into your passion projects and your side hustles. But now with the internet, like the investment doesn't have to be so great. Exactly. You can buy a website domain for $14 and start a newsletter list with MailChimp for free. And you can go on social media for free. You can do all these things for free, and all that it costs you is time. And if you're really passionate about it and you love it anyways, then you're going to enjoy doing it. So I would definitely say find a balance. Like don't take all your savings and get rid of them into this thing that you don't know if it's going to work out or not, but try new things and utilize the advantages of freedom and flexibility, and put your time, which is the most valuable thing that you have, and you get less time as you get married and you have kids and you have a family and your time gets divided. Now you have this like abundance of time to put towards things that you really love to do. That I would say, be a little bit frivolous with your time. Like spend a lot of time trying to build the skills that when you have less time, you'll at least have the skills built, so it'll be easier.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good point. When we were trying to open up CrossFit New Zealand in 2008, and I'm a bit of a risk taker too. Like I'm very optimistic. I think we were talking about this the other day. Like I never think of the things that are going to go wrong. And maybe that's also because I've had the support of my parents my whole life, so I kind of, something really did happen, back then I would always just have some help. Like I think having that love and support is really crucial. And so nothing in my head was like, nobody knows what CrossFit is in New Zealand. This is going to fail. Like I was like, of course, this is going to just, so we named it CrossFit New Zealand. Like we're the first CrossFit in New Zealand. We took the whole country's name and the thing that got me was like, to get a loan from a bank, we had to have so much documentation. There was like, we had to have this super thorough like business report, like a market, like all of this stuff. And that was what freaked me out. I'm like, I don't have any of this. This is ridiculous. And then luckily we ended up getting a loan from my business partner at the time, his parents, and we just kind of ran with it and did our own thing. But I think that can be kind of scary for people too in the entrepreneur world, is like, well, where do I start? And I think exactly what you just said is such a great thing. If you're passionate about it, I think that's where you have to start, and until you've had experiences and made many, many mistakes, starting a business that's like just a good business without being a passion probably could wait a little bit. I think doing something that you are passionate about and you're good at and you're going to want to invest time is a great place to start. Cool. So yeah, I mean,
it's been a huge mistake that I've seen people do over and over again is start businesses. And the first thing they say to me is like, I'll say something like, what's your 2-year vision? And the first thing they say is how much money they want to make. Right. And they're not making any money right now. So it's not even like they have this history of revenue and they can be like, I want to see 35% growth year over year. So that means I can make this much money. It's just an arbitrary random number. And it's the first thing they're thinking about. And I think when you start something from the thinking of, I want to make money, you make decisions in a very different way.
Absolutely.
Then I just want to have an impact, or I want to do something I'm passionate about, or I really want to be more skilled in this way and I'm going to work on my skills. Versus just wanting to make money is not something that can motivate you for that long, especially when you don't make money.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah, that's a very good point. And I wonder if too, like on the, we just kind of tapped into the financial side of things, but what about like the emotional and relationship side of like having stability? I know that, like, when did you guys get married? 3 years ago?
3 years.
Gosh, man, that's gone so fast. Okay. So, and you've been together for about 4 years now, right? But I feel like you and Michael you've come such a long way in your relationship, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like you have had that mental space because you are financially stable, or you're in a place with your businesses that you have a lot of help and you kind of can keep it rolling, that you have the time to spend on yourselves, your own personal development, and the growth of your relationship, where I think many people, A, don't have the maturity to even think that far ahead, B, don't have that mental space.
I think there is a mix. So before I met Michael, I definitely was not in this emotionally stable place. You can ask any of my ex-boyfriends. Adee is not necessarily an super emotionally stable person. And when I first met Michael, I was definitely not in it as like financially secure as I feel right now. So, and I also had no time at the time. Like I was coaching a lot of people and I was running I had almost no time.
Right.
One of the beautiful things about when I met Michael is I didn't have Wi-Fi when I met him, so I couldn't work. Like I had no choice. So like the universe gave me mental space to meet him. So I think Now it helps us a lot, like especially going into starting a family, having that freedom now feels amazing and like a huge gift to when we're about to put a huge new stressor on our relationship, we're just not going to also have the other stressors that are really prevalent, which I think is a really big gift. But it did take us time in our relationship to get here. What I think was very helpful was when I first met Michael, I realized that a lot of the reasons that he is so calm and so he doesn't really stress about things that are out of his control. He doesn't worry. He doesn't have a lot of anxiety, and a lot of it he has amazing relationships in his life. Like he doesn't have a lot. He has almost zero drama. Like if he's ever done something wrong to somebody in the past, he has done everything that he can to try and right that wrong or come complete with those relationships. And I think it's such an admirable piece of him. And he attributes all of that to going to rehab and spending 8 years in therapy. And so not everybody gets to be in a relationship with a recovered addict. But the thing that I learned from that was I don't think I have to be a heroin addict in order to benefit from therapy.
Totally.
I don't think I have to go through like rock bottoms. I used to be very insecure about the fact that I didn't have a sob story. Like I don't have this, like I wasn't addicted to heroin. I didn't go through like huge like trauma in my life. And I thought it would make me more interesting if I did. And so I used to like be kind of self-conscious about it. And then when I met him, I realized I can benefit from all the same things that he used without needing to go through the lows. Like I don't need to hit rock bottom in order to need therapy. So watching him still do the things that got him sober and healthy, like meditation and morning routines and therapy and talking about things or taking space when you need space to think about things, like watching him helps me learn to become more emotionally stable. And then we, by random fluke chance, met a woman 3 months into our relationship who happened to be a relationship coach. I got on a phone call with her. She was supposed to be my business coach. There was like a miscommunication somewhere, and she's not even a business coach. She's a relationship coach. She gave me the free hour anyways, and we've been working with her for 4 years since that phone call. So I think there's just like, there's a lot of like very lucky things that happened, but also still taking the call. You know, I still wanted to take the call, and I was still open to hearing what she had to say, and we still continue to work with her. So like Michael and I do a lot of coaching on our relationships, on ourselves personally, and we found the time. We didn't have as much time as we have now, but we've built our lives to be that way. And I don't think anyone listening should make the excuse like I don't have time. Because if you focus on your relationship, that is the person you're going to spend the most time with. If you really think about it, you're going to die and you're going to have spent the most time with this person.
Yeah.
And that relationship is not solid. You're not buying time from anywhere else.
Right. And then
you're buying time.
And then it's just going to impact all the stability that you, like if let's say your life isn't stable in the other areas, it's just going to impact that even further. So if there's, you know, if for some reason, like financially, you can't be very stable right now, but you can have a rock solid relationship and be solid emotionally, then for sure it's going to impact your attitude towards, you know, how you are financially and whatnot.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
Cool. So basically everyone should be working on their relationships regardless of time.
Yeah, there's always work that you can do on your relationship. And one of the best pieces of advice I ever got was that I think the quote is, the best time to fix a leaky roof is when it's not raining.
Right.
When it's raining, you can't fix the leak in the roof. So if you're going through a lot of people only work on their relationship when things are going wrong. And they're like, oh, we're broken, we need to fix it. The best time to work on your relationship is when things are going well, because then you can point out areas for growth in one another, and hearing it doesn't trigger you to become defensive.
Exactly.
If you're in conflict, you're trying to protect yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I want to sure that I win, or
Right.
you can't make me wrong, or I'm going to defend myself. If things are going right and you're like, I'm so in love with you, and Michael points out, you know, you could do this better. I'm like, oh yeah, I probably could really do that better.
Right.
Versus, oh, you could do that better too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that people maybe don't know how to do that when they're like not in conflict? You know, they don't know where to start, like you say, like working on the growth of the relationship. But I think, and you know what that means, and but a lot of people don't, like they just kind of go through life and they don't understand, like, well, how does that conversation look like? Do we just sit on the couch and talk about things that we can get better on, or do we talk about the future? Or, you know, like I think that would be something for people to like look inward with, would be like, okay, well, you know, where are we finding joy and where are we not finding joy, and let's talk about those things as a start.
For sure. That's like one of the biggest questions I get is like, where do we even start doing
Right.
something like that?
Right.
You can't, maybe getting therapy is not an option, or you don't have someone near you that you resonate with. A couple things that can start you right off is even the small thing of like what you just said. Do we just sit and have a conversation about what we think the other can be better at? Yeah, like that
Right.
could be a great conversation to just sit and have. I would, a lot of times I think people are like afraid that they're going to create problems by
Mm-hmm.
having these conversations. So my biggest piece of advice is have these conversations in any way that you feel is appropriate, but definitely create like some type of container around the conversation. Like open the conversation with, I want to have a conversation and we might talk about some hard things, and I want to be able to be open and honest, and I want you to be able to be open and honest, and anything said in this conversation is coming from a place of love, and we might be vulnerable, and know that if you have the option to like pause or take a second if you need, and then close the conversation so that this doesn't turn into like a whole day like
Right.
bitch fest about
Right.
like creating a container of, I want, my intention for this conversation is to talk about anything unsaid that maybe we want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys make a commitment to not get defensive, to not take things personally, and to remember that that person loves you and they want you to be your best self.
Yeah, that's great. Cool. I love it. All right.
Yeah, maybe we should create like, maybe Michael and I should create like some type of how to start.
Do it. I think you should. I think that would go down really well, because I bet you, no, I was going to say majority, but I actually have no idea. Just a lot of people would, I think they're stuck into how to improve their relationship. Write it down. All right. Thanks, Adee.